up to Ivan, but I'll get him on. Up to Ivan, but I'll get him on.
Hey, folks, sorry about the delays here. Just give me one more minute. Okay, I'll take the blame on this one, guys. Not sure what the technical issues were exactly, but hopefully we should be good now. All right, so we have got Sam, Pasta, Constantine, and Odysseus, and Igor, Lukasz, Wisdom, Evgeny. I think I got everybody to cover us for platform, core, and mobile updates. I will give the mobile updates later. So we'll start out with the platform team. Sam, Sam, you want to start us off?
Sure. I was just reconnecting. Are people able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so a quick overview of the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks was where we were heavily focusing on testing and fixing issues in the newly released version 25, which is basically the version 1 beta 1. It's synonymous. And Ivan, Igor, Lukasz, and myself were on that task. Wisdom was working on state sync on the GroveDB side. Evgeny was working on a new little project called Platform Terminal Interface. Terminal user interface, I guess. That's what TUI stands for. It's, well, we'll get into that, but just for people that can't wait, it's a little interface and terminal that you can send state transitions to the network. So you can easily test out strategies like, oh, I want to send out 15 state transitions, query, but directly in a terminal interface to make things easier than using the SDK. And then I was also working on the reboot of masternode voting, and I'll get to that. Okay, let's start with the testing and fixes. Ivan? Oh, wait, no, first. Last time we had this slide and we basically were done with the first 3 and we hadn't gone to minor voting and activation. So we did do the minor voting and activation. That was done about 13 days ago. We have been working heavily on stabilization. We had a lot of hiccups. The first being that, it actually failed to start properly. We fixed an issue there and then restarted it. And then there have been multiple issues as we've seen. It sometimes ran for a few days and then would break again. And we've been going through that process. It does. Ivan, is it stable now?
Not yet. We still have 2 issues.
2 issues. Okay, so we'll talk about those right now. So our goal right now is to stabilize and release the JavaScript SDK as soon as possible. Okay, let's start.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you, Sam. So I will try to go through the in a historical order how we heavily worked on the testing of the platform on testnet, and that was pretty intense. We didn't listed all the issues what we faced with and what we fixed. So let's go just from the major ones, to don't bore you too much. So the first thing what we did at the beginning of the sprint, we improved the logging in Drive ABCI, added the context. So basically what height, what round, and some additional information like ABCI request, ABCI response, and additional information that helps to read through the logs and understand what's actually going on. That's very important part. And we did it for the Drive ABCI, and we also decided to use file logs use it even before, but version 25 did not implement this for Dashmate. So we have two tasks to expose file logs configuration for Drive ABCI and Tender Dash. So in our testnet, in deployment tool, we can use these logs for our needs, not just the text, but the files as well. Another problematic part was the error handling in Drive ABCI, because it didn't mimic the same logic what we had in JS Drive. So some clients and DAPI got crazy, and because getting like different error codes, not what they expected to get, and it was pretty hard to understand what's actually going on. And so we made some fixes for the check ticks to provide the error information. Excuse me?
I think it doesn't matter, Eva. Just continue.
Oh yeah, sorry. Am I breaking up?
No, everything's fine. Please continue.
Okay, great. Yeah, and some error handling stuff, and like wrong error code when we broadcast state transition, and so to put things into order, we made decision to go through all the ABCI endpoints and fix to make proper error handling. So we use proper error codes, we're reporting about errors properly, and Igor is working on this task right now. Igor, would you like to share some information?
Hey everyone, Igor is here. So this week I was busy improving error handling in Drive endpoints, such as checktx is one of the most important endpoints out there. This is the one called by Tender Dash when we submit a transaction to the network. So basically, before putting a transaction into Tender Dash mempool, we have to do some checks on it. And we just want to respond in a more understandable way to a user and provide some extra error codes to handle validation issues on the transactions. And second major area is the handlers, such as endpoint for data contract or for identities when we want to fetch some documents, data contracts, and identities, and etc. So this task is in progress. We got to the state where we made it almost 100% conform with the way it was done in JS Drive originally, because it was done in a well way. It was well thought in JS Drive. So we kind of mimicking this interface almost one-to-one right now. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So now I finished doing improved error handling for the queries, and checktx is coming after that.
Cool. Thank you, Igor. So, we're still on the previous slide. Yeah. There were two more bugs. One was about they have the logic of the vote extension for Tender Dash when ABC application can inject additional information to the vote when the validator's voting on the block. So this vote extension allow to sign not just the block, but also additional information. We use it for withdrawals. So the drive ABCI with Tender Dash, it signs not just the block, but also the withdrawal transactions. So it's part of the withdrawal logic when user could withdraw the credits back to Dash. So it signs the layer 1 withdrawal transactions with the quorum. Yeah, and we had like 2 strict restrictions there, and we didn't expect that these messages could be unordered, and we still could get the vote extension calls from the previous blocks, previous rounds, and it's actually okay. You just need to handle it properly. And that was the reason, one of the chain halts we had this sprint. Yeah, the next bug, Sam, you worked on this. You want to share some thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Sure. It wasn't really a bug. It was an oversight. At one point, I was testing something and I put that you could only get back one response from a certain type of query, and that somehow got released. So yeah, the problem is that even if you said I'd like to get 10 documents, you would only get one. And it was only one. And basically, I just had to remove the one and allow it to be any number. Well, up to 100 is the current limit. So yeah, it was just this is not really a fix. It's just it's just like, okay, fix the oversight. The undefined where clause is a little bit different. We asked users to always provide like a where clause no matter what, meaning that you would have to provide an empty array if you didn't actually want any where clause. But now we allow apps like no where clause as well. So if you put no where clause, it acts as if, there's a difference between empty where clauses and no where clauses, but now both actually give the same result. So it makes using things a little bit more. You don't actually have to put a where brackets if there is no where. That's basically that. Let's go on to the next slide. And I think Lukasz takes over, or
yeah, I can go next. So basically, while testing platform, we got to some issue between Drive and then Tender Dash. So the initial issue was that as Tender Dash gets votes, it sends them to Drive to verify. However, Drive assumed that the round number will be always the same for the current voting round, due to like random order of network communication and random order of votes coming to the node. And the vote might arrive early, so the round number might be too big, or it can arrive late, so the round number will be in past. And that was a bug because like Drive should allow all types of votes to be processed, and we fixed that. But after fixing that, the way to fix this and deploy changes showed us another few issues. First one was that during the replay, so when Tender Dash restarts and Drive restarts, it was just trying to replay all the transactions that were not finalized, so the blocks that were not committed. And in this process, we came to a first issue in Tender Dash that was just calling the prepare proposal endpoint unnecessarily, and Drive didn't support that, but it was Tender Dash issue, so we fixed that. After that, due to the method of recovery of the testnet, we found out that if a node votes twice, and the recovery method we used caused double voting, the evidence was propagating in a loop and causing very high load on the system, right? So we fixed that. And third issue was quite minor fix, where some non-validators were expecting to get a public key in order to verify evidence, but that public key is not available on the non-validator. So public keys of other validators are not available on non-validators. So we had fixed that. However, it will require like more work in future to fix it properly. It's a hot fix at this point. And that's pretty much it when it comes to communication between TenderDash and ABCI and issues we detected during that sprint. Ivan, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you, Lukasz. So yeah, basically we deployed the Lukasz released new version of TenderDash 13.1. We did deployment last weekend to the testnet, and we expected the reduction of the load on the nodes, and actually we got that. But we also got a few more issues. So the next one was the Docker guys updated the release new version, and actually they released the version for Linux a few weeks ago, and last week they released for the Mac, and this new version contains 2 breaking changes. So it broke our Dashmate, and it took some time to mitigate that. Yeah, it was very unfortunate. So the next issue was that in our tests we noticed that some of the tests failing with the work queue is overflowed or something like this, error from the core, which means that the RPC, let me explain, in the core, the RPC has a queue of the comments, and this queue is sequentially processed one by one in one single thread, and this queue has a limited size. So it's basically some simple protection mechanism. So the consumers of the core who use this RPC, they won't produce too much load on the process. And so this error means that in our it was our assumption. It means that something produced too much like calls to the core. It might be DAPI, it might be Drive or TenderDash. So all these 3 services are using core RPC. And yeah, it was interesting journey to figure out what's actually going on there. During this work, we improved our error reporting in smoke tests for the deployment tool. So now we can see the transport errors for specific nodes. So we identified that even the master nodes are affected with this error, and on our master nodes we don't host the platform at all, so there is no platform services, which means that it might be just a core issue. So we continue the investigation. That's still open issue, what we need to figure out right now. Another open issue is the zero SSL certificates renewal. Let me explain. In testnet, you noticed since version 24, DAPI served through HTTPS protocol to be compliant with the browsers and to work in browser extensions. So we use the Zero SSL provider for certificates, and the certificate expiration period there is 90 days. And before this period, before this deadline, you're supposed to renew your certificate. And we have a special automated logic in Dashmate. So it's like renew your certificate for you automatically using the API key for Zero SSL. But this logic failed because it didn't work yet. It was the first time of renewal for testnet. So there were some issues, and we still fixed that. There was an issue in deployment tool, it's fixed, and there is still issue in Dashmate itself. We're working on this. So answering to your question, Sam, we still have two open problems on testnet. The first one is more like a flaky, this core RPCQ thing, and the Zero SSL doesn't prevent for like block production and things like this, but it prevents us to run the smoke tests because they are using Dashmate helper API to interact with the services on the node. Yeah, so it was a lot of work, guys, and during this sprint we made 10 releases, and so we're going to continue our bug hunting season. Yeah.
Thanks, Ivan.
Yeah, sure.
Next slide, please. So there's actually one issue that I worked on, which is fixing an issue with basically querying of block transactions, core block transactions during withdrawals. And what does this actually mean? So there was previous logic that when you do withdrawals of credits into Dash, it creates a core transaction. And then this core transaction is broadcasted to the payment chain, the core payment chain, and then eventually is mined into a finalized block. The previous logic that I was trying to investigate actually causes for too many calls to core, basically. And this is a potential one. It actually wasn't the one that was happening, but it would have been hit at very shortly in the future. If there had been a chain halt, or if there had been anything that would have caused core to have too many blocks, it would ask one after another for all the transactions and all the blocks. Now, there would have been many, many problems with this, especially if we were only looking for one or two transactions. So instead, now we have a specialized call, RPC to core, which asks if a series of up to 100 transactions are finalized and at what block they were mined. And with this information, we can that there can be no issue, basically, because for every block we only update 100 withdrawal statuses, and yeah, so now this has been merged in. It was merged into core v20 alpha 10, if I'm not mistaken, and it was also merged into platform, maybe, or it's been reviewed and needs to be merged in at any point right now. So yeah, another fix. So let's continue on. I think Igor, there's one task that, yeah. I can just say this really quickly because there's not. Igor, you want to talk about it, or?
Well, go ahead. Well, it's very quick, actually. We just, yeah. I'll just mention that we quite recently pulled from the Bitcoin core library upstream of the written in Rust. So we are quite up to date to the Bitcoin core library. And since it has had really a lot of changes, and they kind of even made some architectural changes in the library, we had to make them as well and update our projects based on that changes. So we have Dash Core Rust done, Dash Core Rust RPC, sorry. And also we upgraded Drive EDCI to use latest version of Rust Dash Core.
Yep. Thanks, Igor. Yeah. Okay. So we've been talking about the testing part. That one was kind of in between. That was not real. That was more of a update on our feature. But now we're going to be talking about the features that we've been building during these last 2 weeks. I was personally on vacation half the time, so you won't see as much from me. But I did work on platform masternode voting. We actually kind of needed to reboot this, and I'm going to basically give you right now the structure of the work that was done so far in this sprint and what is left to do to finish this amount of work. So you have to create, to be able to vote, right? You have to create a state transition that allows for a vote to arrive into platform. So I created the masternode vote state transition. Inside a masternode vote state transition, there's multiple types of votes that it can vote on. Right now, we are only supporting a contested unique index because that is the thing that we need for release for DashPay and for DPNS. So I built out the contested unique index and the vote structure. What is a contested unique index? So basically, in a system that's decentralized, you can have data that is unique. For example, there can only be one house at one address, theoretically. And if you took an index and you indexed houses by address, one address, like one exact address equals one house, right? So there's a unique index. Now let's imagine that you have a city and nobody lives in the city, right? And there are some really good houses in that. You have a villa somewhere and you have 1 million people coming in and 2 people want to get the same villa house. I mean, it's all free, right? I don't know what type of world this is, but yeah, that would be basically a contested unique index. 2 identities want the same contested resources. And basically, what happens is in the system, you can define in your contract a contested unique index and a resolution to that contested unique index. So if 2 people want exactly the same thing, it goes to a resolution phase. There are 3 resolution phases, 3 different types of resolutions that I have put in, but we're not going to support on version 1. There's a masternode voting. So if 2 people want the same thing, the masternodes decide. The second one is a group of identities. So there would be a specific group of identities that is selected that would vote instead of masternodes voting. And the third one would actually be a bidding war. So you could just say, well, 2 people want this. The person that pays the most for it wins. So those are the 3 resolutions that I thought of. Only the masternode voting will come out for version 1, but we'll do fast followers for the other resolutions. Yeah, so then I built out the special logic for a contested unique index into Drive. Basically, that means that so a unique index has only one. There can only be one thing in a unique index. So, if you point to, if you say who lives at that house, there's only one person. Well, I mean, one family or something. And now basically you have two kind of like a superposition of states. It can be in this one or it can be in that one. And eventually after the resolution, it chooses one or the other. And this actually has to be coded in a little bit like as if it was not unique, but at the end of the resolution, it becomes unique and one gets selected. So that's been built. The vote storage and drive. This is in progress. Actually storing the masternode votes. It's using a sum tree. So you can immediately query the system and just say, hey, how many votes did this have? How many votes did that is going for that identity for this resolution? The masternode vote state transition validation, that's also in progress. That's basically validating that, you know, when you're submitting a vote, that you're still a masternode, that you can do this vote, and other things like that. The cleanup of votes, so when the resolution is over, we don't need to keep the votes around. We get rid of them and we distribute the resource to the winner of the resolution. One thing that I have not decided yet, thinking about how to deal with it, is what happens in the case of a tie. In the case of a tie, I do believe what we will do, this is, if anybody wants to add in the comments something else, I think it will basically be just the first one who posts it. So it will go by date. So like if two people get each 100 votes exactly, the first one to have started it wins. Okay. Next slide. And I think this is Evgeny.
Yep, that's me. Hi. So, a bit of details about what this platform TUI is. So, we've started a new application, and some of you might be familiar with a thing called Drive Explorer, that which Sam had on multiple demos before. That was about querying and updating Drive. And here, the new app platform TUI, which should be like a same thing, but for platform, like a tool belt for interacting with platform, which should help to debug and test it. So this includes querying data option with proofs, submit signed state transitions, so to make data constructs, to generate documents for that data contracts, to produce some load for the network. And since it's a quite big tool, we've investigating how to properly organize it. And since there are solutions for drawing interface and terminal, but no proper frameworks yet to build the whole application. And also some widgets are missing. So things are in progress. After terminal UI part is done, we plan to use things we already have to some extent, which are RSSDK and or DAPI client directly. So this application would be an actual first RSSDK user, which is quite nice to have this early to test things, how they will work together and how usable they are. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, let's go on to GroveDB. Wisdom?
Yeah, do you want to take the first one?
Oh, yes. So there's this bug that I've been mentioning. I think I mentioned it last sprint review about a just-in-time cost bug. There's been very little work on that. I plan to work on that for the rest of the week, just leaving it here so people know it's not forgotten. It's, so hopefully it will be done this week. Go on, Wisdom.
Okay. So continued work on state sync. So we already had multi-chunk processing on the producer side, but then the restorer was always using the single chunk for processing. So I finished the implementation of multi-chunk processing on the restorer side. So I had to relax some of the constraints for verifying a chunk in order to allow multi-chunk processing, but it works now. And basically the idea is that you can have a, if the entire tree fits in a single chunk, then you should not bear any additional cost. So you wouldn't need to send more node hashes like you would have if you were doing single chunk processing. So that works now. So while stress testing the system with big trees, I ended up hitting a bug that I had not seen before. And then it pointed out a flaw in one of the designs. So at a point, we were doing linear combinations of 2 and 3s for the layer heights. And then I switched over to just 2s. And I didn't realize that that was wrong because of, it's possible that for something like a tree of height 5, you're going to split into 2, 2, 1. And we never want to have just one because of the last layer does not guarantee that there's going to be
I
a
think
node at every point.
I
Yeah.
think you need to give more context than like 2 and 3 for people.
Oh, so the basically you have a big tree of a certain height. Then we need to break that tree into smaller chunks, and then we send those chunks one after the other. Then the way we break it up is, so right now the current solution is to break it up into sizes of 2 and 3. So that's like chunks. The minimum height of the chunk is a 2, and the maximum height of the chunk is a 3. And then you send that over. So if you do a linear combination of 2 and 3, then you can represent any height with this. But then I tried to do a linear combination of just 2, and that didn't work because of something like 5. That's raised power of 2 plus 1. So that one is what we do not want. So I changed it back, and that now required that I had to implement something to figure out a chunk ID from traversal instructions. Traversal instructions are basically left-right instructions that tells you how to move in a tree. So you have instructions to move from the roots to a certain node, and then can you use the instruction to reverse engineer the chunk ID that produced that instruction? So that's done. That I was able to do that. Yes. So the next thing that I did was to start thinking about malicious chunk producers. So chunk producers that are not honest and are trying to break the system and cheat and cause like state corruption in the restaurant. I listed out a set of attacks that could potentially happen, and I figured out ways to counter them, and I implemented those. So right now, it's resistant to all known attacks that I could think of. Obviously, once we release this, and we'll be able to like, once we release this and the ADR document, then we'll be able to get more feedback into like maybe we missed something. Then the child heights, yes. So this was the last thing in the restoration process. So after you have done all the restoration, because the height is not in state, it's not in the root hash. So there's no way for you to verify the height at the points of, at each chunk point. So you have to do that at the end of the entire tree restoration. So after you have restored the entire tree, then you can now like go through the heights of the nodes and ensure that everything is correct. So I did this, and then I added the test into the verifier because we have a new Merck verifier and GovDB verifier that can determine whether the Merck tree is restored properly And then if it's not restored properly, it can figure out the exact point of fault, and it can build a restoration plan from that point that you can then just continue from. So now where I'm at is I'm stress testing the system, and I am fixing the bugs that come as I'm doing that. So I'm just writing more tests, a lot more tests for different scenarios that I think might is probably not well tested, and I have some to-dos for things that I was like I should go back to think about. So I'm doing that right now, and any bugs that comes up, I'm going to fix it, and just general refactorings to make sure that we can actually merge it into GraphDB. So that's where I am with StateSync. Okay.
Excellent. Thanks, Wisdom. Okay, so not much has changed on this slide. I keep on we're keeping it here, but we do have some good news. Our dear, amazing, I think I can say it, a Greek hero has decided to come and help us in platform on withdrawals. So he's going to help the speed as V20 is nearing completion. So that's that. The mass node voting, yeah, it was rebooted. I would say at this point, I've done about half of it. I think I'll get it done by the next sprint review. There's the fee cost tweaking that still hasn't started, and StateSync has gone up a little bit. It's yeah, we just as Wisdom showed, like there's he needs to stress test it, and then we need to put it in place, which it should all work. So maybe 90% is a little optimistic. 90% of the code of the original code, there's going to be testing after that. So let's go on to core team.
Okay, hello guys. So we currently have 70 event nodes registered. Keep in mind that we still need 10 more to be able to create the LNMQ 167. Of course, it's uses now without platform, but just letting you know. Regarding V20 development, most of the stuff are done. So the randomness beacon, the even node payments, asset logs, elimination of Sentinel, reward masternode location reallocation. The only one pending stuff is the enhanced hard fork mechanism, which is in the final stages of reviewing. We are also making progress in the shared masternodes that we planned to include in V21. Basta, I want to speak about the future plan of V20 release.
Yeah, thanks, Odie. So we are continuing our testing on testnet. We had released beta 1 previously, and we also just released alpha 10. It was kind of downgraded to an alpha because we were deploying some code that hadn't been fully reviewed, but that will basically become beta 2 once review is final on that. And if we can move to the next slide. So I am sharing here what was posted to GitHub this morning after our core dev call. And we have a tentative, as always, release timeline now for V20. There are really three primary blockers to being able to have a proper release candidate. And that includes finalization of the masternode hard fork activation, or EHF. That should be done probably this week. Definitely by the end of next week, we want it to be done. It's possible that, we plan on getting it done this week. It is in final review. There's just a few more things that need modified. And then the proposal that was put in this cycle for the block reward reallocation, assuming that passes, that will be included in V20. And so work has not really began on that yet, but it's pretty simple. And so that should be ready to be merged in by about the 27th-ish. And then we just need to finalize a little bit with asset locks, as was talked about earlier. There are some concerns about small portions of the design, and so we need to finalize that. And that implementation, again, should be quite quick. So like I said, we've already released beta 1. That's been on testnet for a little bit now, working with platform and doing everything well. The current timeline for releasing RC1 is looking at the 4th of October. That should be pretty doable. Like I said, there's really just those couple of small things that we have to wrap up. And that puts us with about a 5-week testing period on testnet before a final release about the 2nd or 3rd week of November. Okay, I think that was all that I wanted to talk about here. I think we can move on to mobile.
All right, thank you. All right, so we had a few things that took a little bit longer than we planned in this last sprint, so we had a little bit lighter completion rate, but we had to upgrade to Android 13. That was fairly minor. And we had a small bug on occasionally happen on the sign up for CrowdNode. So that was fixed. Username voting. So this goes back to the back-end work that Sam was speaking about, the voting. This is the front-end client side of that process. Basically, it's just the UI work that we're doing. And we'll obviously get into the back-end work once it's done on Podform. And we were able to, with the release that was sent to testnet, get started on our client upgrades to Core 20. That's still in progress, as well as some CoinJoin work to fix when we stop the application to restart the mixing process. That's still in progress as well. And we did add the Maya entry points. So we are integrating with Maya for cell swaps to start with. And we were able to get the first part of that for the entry points done. And we had one release, which releases Android 13 upgrade and small bug there for CrowdNode that was released. For iOS, finished the second to last thing. I think we've got one more in our current sprint for merging of DashPay. This is just to, again, make the code a little bit more organized, less overhead. We're merging it with Dash Wallet. So just got one branch there. And the on-ramp that we already finished for Android, we added to the iOS, which is Topper. I'll show a little bit of that after this. And then as part of that, we have to kind of align the UI for the Uphold portal. That's where that widget lives. And then small Coinbase bug, some minor security improvements. The Rust work continues. We kind of reprioritize what's called the macro work, which essentially is going to let us create the C bindings, well, us and the platform team, and a couple small bugs. So that is that. I will actually show another demo a little bit of Topper. So Topper it's supported by Uphold, but you don't have to have an Uphold account. This is the flow after you've done a sign up. So you don't have to have an Uphold account. They do have their own, account mechanism, which requires some pretty minor, personal information. It's email. I think it's email and address. I don't remember if there's anything else, as well as a government ID and a selfie. But it's a pretty quick process. I was impressed with how it went. This is just going to show what a straight up buy would be. And I'm going to skip past a couple things just to avoid my card details from being entered. So this was recorded actually a couple of weeks ago. We had the topper piece already implemented actually on Android, and we had to hold off on releasing it so we could get all of our business verification squared away with the topper team. But you'll see it's sign in, a one-time password basically that they give you via email. It'll store past credit cards that were used. Pause through here. So after you enter the CVC, it goes right into the processing state. Again, it's pretty quick. But this is what the flow looks like. And there it is. So it's really quick. I mean, obviously it depends a little bit on where the block processing is, but it's it's really quick. So it's a really good way to buy some Dash and get it into your Dash wallet. That pretty much covers it. I suppose we can do some questions now. The only one that I saw earlier on was a question about nowhere clauses. I don't know, Sam, maybe if you can answer what a nowhere clause is.
No, I think he was just trolling a little bit.
Okay. All right.
But there were some other questions. Yeah, let's take questions right now. I did see one. One very quickly about Balázs. Yeah, Balázs is on vacation. So he'll be back on the next sprint review. And then there was a question about, can we deploy dApps now and expect them to run? You can, if you want to do it through, well, that's a good question. Can you? Well, I mean, us and DCG, we would know how to. It's pretty hard for community members to know how to do that right now, mostly because we have multiple ways to deploy contracts, and most of them are relying on various SDKs, either iOS SDK. I know can do it. The JavaScript SDK can do it, but none of those have been officially released yet. So let's say probably not.
So there's a question about Maya. So yeah, cell swaps was the very first thing that that they supported on the network. They do not yet support buy swaps, or not for the way that we would need to have them support it. They are going to be, what I understand, Thorchain is doing a memo based kind of system, which would allow us to have a more straightforward implementation of buy swaps. As far as the liquidity, they do, if you're referring to the earn feature that they got, or I forgot the exact name of it, I don't think it's live yet, but we are, yes, planning on, that would be a second phase. We'll have an earn feature for Maya. So that answers the question there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't hear about Topper until it was actually the last conference I went to when we met up with our Uphold partners. They introduced us to them, and yeah, it worked out well. It was a really straightforward implementation.
Well, that's great. There was one more question that I saw around that is wild. Is this a Tendermint thing or specifically a TenderDash thing, referring to the 3 resolutions for a contested index? No, that is completely a platform thing. it's actually kind of an interesting topic of, when you have something that's valuable on your network, how do you find out who gets to have it? So we're going to be implementing some primitives to figure out the resolution of something that is supposed to be unique and only to be given out to one person. I'm sure later down the line, you can extrapolate that to say, okay, you have 10 of this thing, it can only be given to 10 people, or something like that, like a number outside of one. But yeah, let's imagine that, we talked about bidding, masternode vote, and like a group of identities voting. There are others, that we can later implement for conflict resolution. We could do like solving a puzzle, or even providing a hash function, like a little bit like proof of work. If you want to, who the first person that figures out this hash function can get this this resource. It's one of those things that it's very cool, but right now it's not the most important thing. So we're just going to build out one of them, which is the masternode vote that's needed for the name distribution. The way that I've reprogrammed this, and nobody actually knows it even in this call, is that I only made the names in DPNS up to having conflicts if you did not add a number to them. So basically, if you wanted your name right away, your DPNS name right away, you could get it if you basically said like Quantum Explorer 1 or Quantum Explorer 2. But if you wanted without just an alphanumeric and under 30 characters, it went to a conflict resolution. Sorry, people, I didn't mention it to anybody yet, but that's how I programmed it in. If you disagree with that, write it in the comments. Yeah, it should be a good way of distributing names. Like, I do believe that there are going to be very few people that really care about a name that has a number in it. But if I'm wrong, let me know. Okay. Do we have any more questions? Selling seats at a concert. No, this is literally just for the DPNS contract where you have their name. But for other things, you can program it as however you want. I'm saying that the conflict resolution is only happening for that contract for a specific sub is if the username is under 30 characters and has no numbers. Yeah. Okay, I think we're out of questions. So I think we can wrap it up. Thanks everybody for joining, and see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks everybody. Bye.